Call me Nintendo greedy, call me Nintendo crazy, call me a little bit sunburned. At least two of those are true, but I do think it's totally fine to talk about what's next. Because one thing that this most recent Nintendo Direct did is prove a lot of people wrong and prove a lot of people right. It really took us to a place where Nintendo is very active instead of very much asleep. And we have had rumors about a July presentation. August is usually a month Nintendo uses. September is their big fall direct. So what is going to happen next and what is the next thing to look forward to? That's what this video is all about. What's going on, everybody? It's Zach from SwitchForce. Little pink in the face. 12 UV index in Phoenix. Gotta use that sunscreen on a daily basis. File that one away in my iPhone notes, but for now, there have been notes on a July presentation. We're going to start off with what's been said and then go on with what I think will happen. As you recall, there was a Nintendo Direct this past week. It was awesome, packed with Mario, and really helped lay out what Nintendo's plans are for the rest of the year. But Jeff Grubb, before this Nintendo Direct debuted in June, said, "Early rumblings, I say that something is going to be in July next month, whether that's a proper Direct, or like a partner Direct, or like a third-party showcase Direct, however they want to frame it, Direct Mini, I have no idea. But it seems like don't expect anything of that sort until next month, if that even happens at all. Like I said, rumblings, but it does seem pretty likely that something can happen next month with Nintendo." That's Jeff Grubb. Then Necrophilippe, who was spot on about the Direct, had this to say: "The kind of Direct Nintendo does last week, will track what they share in July as well. I'll keep an eye out for that." Now that's a little bit more vague, because we can read into that one of two ways. One, that hey, whatever they do in June will inform what they do in July, like duh, obvious, or that there's actually another event in July, but what happens in totality with June will help dictate what's going on in July. So these two accounts of July, one could be incorrect. Jeff Grubb could have been thinking July, hearing July, but in reality it was June. But the Necrophilippe from Nintendo, Universo Nintendo in Brazil, seems to be indicating another event. And some of the replies where people are saying, oh, a Pokemon Presents, what's going on? He clarifies that, hey, if there's Pokemon in the Direct, probably not in the Present, one way or another. We did get a bunch of Pokemon in this Direct. Scarlet and Violet DLC, as well as Detective Pikachu 2. I don't know that a Pokemon Presents in July makes sense. But let's just run with this idea that something is in July. What could it be? It's not going to be another Nintendo Direct. I don't think they have enough for a third-party showcase. We still have the weird case of Persona 3 Reload, which didn't pop up, although people have been showing on retailer listings that it's for Switch. Where is it? But given that Prince of Persia has already been confirmed by Ubisoft, Mario plus Rabbids DLC appeared in the Direct and dropped, so many things from Square Enix showed up and were announced and confirmed, I don't think there's enough for a partner showcase. That leaves a few options. One could be an Indie World presentation. Now, August is usually Indie World month. August has been Indie World month ever since Nindies, Indies, all of that took shape at Nintendo since 2017, except for last year. Last year was an oddball where we had an Indie World in May and again in November, but every other year from 2017 to 2021, there was an Indie World in August. So an Indie World in July, in theory, is very possible, but it's not following the pattern. Now, Nintendo has proven they don't really care a ton about patterns, so an Indie World could be a perfect spot, and there are so many games kind of like waiting in the wings. I feel like there's a ton of games that were not mentioned during the Summer Games Fest stuff, even like Devolver's entire slate, like Gunbrella, what's the date on that? Pepper Grinder, what's the date on that? Angerfoot, what's the date on that? We don't know. We have some demos on the Steam Next Fest, but we don't have dates, and they didn't divulge them in their Devolver Divulging Direct. So an Indie World is possible, but Indie Worlds do seem like an August thing, and so then it's like, what could it be? A Pokemon Presents? Yeah, like to give the date of Scarlet and Violet DLC, but it really seems like those are going to be more towards the holiday season to help enhance sales for Scarlet Violet and effectively the Switch itself. So I think a Pokemon Presents would be more along the lines of falling in line with the September Direct, right? Like wherever the September Direct is, a Pokemon Presents maybe could sort of piggyback off of that and give us some good close to release details for Detective Pikachu 2, which comes out early October, and lay the groundwork for the release date of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, whenever that may be, late October, November, December, I don't know. I don't think it's a Pokemon Presents. Doesn't seem like it's a partner showcase. Definitely not a Direct or a Direct Mini. That leaves Indie World or hardware. Now, I know nobody wants to believe in new hardware this early, as we see Nintendo is really moving their way through the Switch lineup, and I made a whole video saying I don't think hardware hits till next holiday. Seems like Nintendo has a ton of Switch games that they can really drag this out. At the same time, they don't want to lose momentum, so is there a chance that hardware could be revealed next month? Well, I'll pull up this quote from Nate Drake here where he says rumblings on the next system are basically at a minimum right now. He thinks they'll start to ramp up in the coming months. I like to believe him. He was very right about the Nintendo Direct. He posted that cryptic 6.21% that really called out the exact date of the Direct even though everyone thought it was crazy. I believe that Nate Drake probably would have heard something. I'm not saying he's the only insider that has 100% access. If Pioro HD tweets that there's a hardware reveal next month, I'm in on that. But it does seem like if there was going to be a hardware reveal next month, it would be something else. Which is both scary, terrifying, and ultimately very exciting because what could Nintendo do besides a Switch 2? I really don't believe the Switch 2 will be revealed next month. I'd love to be wrong. I just don't think it's time. But what about a Switch Lite OLED? I was recently on the Drip and Geeb podcast and we talked about the potential for a Switch Lite OLED. You should check out the podcast. I'll put a link in the description. It was a really fun time. Two great guys. Love to have them on this channel. A Switch Lite OLED makes a lot of sense to eliminate the lower end Switch. We're going to have a Switch 2 eventually, probably next year. We have a Switch OLED. The OG Switch seems like it eventually will fall away. And the Switch Lite then would be so far behind. It can't switch, it can't dock, it doesn't have an OLED screen. The Switch Lite would love to service as sort of the cheaper little brother alternative for you to buy a cheaper Switch, especially once the Switch 2 comes out with an increased price. But do they need to revise that system? I think a Switch Lite OLED makes a lot of sense, and it seems like something that could help boost sales without really affecting anything else. Like a Switch Lite OLED isn't going to steal thunder, a Switch Lite OLED isn't going to prevent you from doing a Switch 2 next year, a Switch Lite OLED isn't even going to cannibalize like fan goodwill because the only people buying Switch Lite OLEDs would probably be people that would already have a Switch 2 also. You know what I mean? Like the Switch Lite OLED isn't going to be your main system, or if it is, you're probably not in the market for a Switch 2 anyways. Do you see what I'm saying? Basically what I'm saying is the Switch Lite OLED would service the same role as the Nintendo 2DS, the pizza slice system, right? It's like, hey, it's really cheap. It still plays the games, huge library, buy it for your kid, buy it for your partner, buy it for your grandpa, whoever you buy it for. It's not like a hardcore gamer that really wants the latest and greatest. I think a Switch Lite OLED is plausible. I don't know what else they could do. At the end of the day, I think it's going to be an indie world that comes next. If you want my prediction, after I was right about the Direct, I think we'll get a hardware skip in July. I'd love to be wrong. They have used the first 10 days of July as hardware reveals for both Switch Lite and Switch OLED, and those were 2 years apart, and now it's been a couple more years, so it could happen. A Switch Lite OLED seems like an option. The Switch 2 I think is incredibly unlikely, but never say never with Nintendo. Or we get a game-specific Direct. A game-specific Direct does not seem like it fits for Pikmin 4 because we did get a substantial overview in this June Direct. The game is out July 21st. There's a demo coming out in just a couple of days. I think they've preceded, all puns intended, the waters for Pikmin 4. The game's going to be fantastic. It probably won't sell as well as it should. And a Direct, I don't think, is going to convince anyone that isn't already convinced the character creator, the overview trailer, and whatever other inevitable videos they do release on Twitter and YouTube and social media. I could see another game being unveiled in July for September. Now, this might seem like an oddball thing, and we can go into more detail later, but Nintendo has used 2-month windows before, and to me it's odd that we go July 21st Pikmin all the way till early October for Detective Pikachu 2. That's like the end of July, all of August, and all of September with nothing. I'll remind you that they used September to launch the Switch Lite, so that month could also be for a Switch Lite OLED, but really, like, if I want to get down to brass tacks, I think the next thing from Nintendo will be an Indie World presentation. We haven't had one since earlier this year, and I felt like that was a dud. I felt like it was the worst Indie World they've ever put together. They need a comeback. And whether that is in mid to late July or more timed around Gamescom in mid to late August, go. Go and give us some great release dates, some exciting new indies, and hey, maybe even demo them over in Germany. It's clear Nintendo has plenty of things to show at Gamescom. They don't need to reveal anything else. Hardware? Do you think it could happen? Another game to fit in sort of that like 2.5 month block? Maybe. It's very unlikely, and it almost seems like it would be something that didn't fit in the Direct. I don't know what that would be, barring it being like another more casual title like I don't know, I'll throw out like Tomodachi Life. Could be a September release. I wouldn't bet a ton of money on it. I would put my marbles on an Indie World being the next presentation. But if Grub, if Necrofleep, if what they were hearing does have some validity, then maybe Nintendo is planning a follow-up. Remember that last year, Nintendo used many different touchstones to cover the entire summer. They had multiple directs. They didn't have a big general. They didn't have the big general that we had, so it does change things slightly, but you can see that Nintendo, most recently, loved to use a bunch of different things. Do we have a game that deserves a dedicated direct? Not right now, and not one that I think has been announced yet, but at the same time, barring something super weird, I don't think we get a game big enough to get its own direct to be announced in July for September. So I'm going Indie World. Let me know in the comments down below what you think is happening next. I bet we get a bit of a quiet lull from Nintendo, maybe some NSO games early July, and then that's going to be it until the Indie World. But I'd love to be surprised. We could wake up on July 8th, have hardware, and go absolutely ham on whatever Nintendo's bringing next. The sky's the limit, but in reality, I think indies is what we'll get. Let me know your take in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, stay positive out there. And until next time, SwitchForce out.